Hello, everyone. I have been talking quite a while now about invoicing, but I can't stop talking about invoicing, and the reason is that invoicing is very important because it digitalizes the invoice, which is the underlying asset for invoice finance. So if you have available digital invoice data, then your whole invoice finance process can be digitalized, and it will affect sales, operations, and risk processes. Why are we talking about invoicing? Because 80 plus countries either have implemented or discussing to implement e-invoicing regulations. So this means that invoice data will be there. You can use invoice data for your operations. It's basically money lying on the street. You just need to get it up. Digitalization of customer journeys will give you 20-30% operational efficiency gains, which means that you can operate cheaper and you can attract new customer segments to be financed. And the third thing is that data will be available, and as Didrik talked about, economic output and economic performance and business relationships will be formed in a different way. We will serve customers in ecosystems, and the standardization and accessibility of digital data will contribute to this also. As I mentioned, and we also saw a chessboard already today, invoice data will change the whole invoice finance game. It will change the way how you can sell your product, how you can access customers, because invoice data will also enable embedded finance, and sharing of invoice data becomes possible along various participants. Onboarding and operational processes will be also affected. As you have, again, access to digital invoice data, you can digitalize these processes as well. We also saw the presentation of Honey Badger. So invoice data will be such a commodity, just like an email address. The accessibility will be different, but it will be there. And in the previous panel, we also heard about the invoice fraud. I'm very happy that it was already mentioned. The tax authority will be on your side with the introduction of e-invoicing. At least part of the fraudulent invoices will not be created for the future. And if you have the structured invoice data, it will be even easier to check the invoice data for double financing. And I'm sorry about those who have seen these slides, but I keep repeating it because this gives you the understanding why invoicing is important and how you can use invoice data to digitalize your financing processes. So invoice and invoice data is the deepest and widest data source in the purchase to pay process. And e-invoicing gives the structured data and standardized data. So it will be, as I said, a commodity. You can use the supplier, buyer data, invoice amount, payment terms, and payment means in a standardized way in your factoring processes. So it will help you in a lot of ways. And what is an e-invoice? An e-invoice is a structured data source. Up until now, we were used to the paper invoices, the PDF invoices. Now, as it becomes digital, it will become also a structured data type of, it will be structured data as well. So you can work with it as with any other structured data source. How you can get access to invoice data, we've been just discussing it during the break. First, it can be embedded into the invoice document as well. So you can have a so-called hybrid invoice where besides the PDF, you will also have the structured data in the invoice. You can get invoice data right from the issuing system by integrating with the invoicing solutions. And you can also get access to invoice data from tax authorities or account aggregators. So there will be different countries will implement different invoicing regimes, but there is one thing sure, that the invoice data will be somewhere there and you can find it. Obviously, besides the invoice data, another data sources will support the digital factoring journey. I won't go into the details because they were already mentioned, but invoice data and other data together can help you with all the issues that you are facing today. And besides all the checks and back office processes, a very important thing can also be digitalized. Digital customer journey can be built up. The whole factoring experience can be changed and can be made easier for customers to get an invoice finance. So if you just need, virtually a couple of clicks on the customer side or the customer user interface, obviously you will do a lot of work in the backend, but it will be a much easier and much more convenient process for your SME customers to have access to factoring and have access to invoice finance. And I think this is also a very important thing, so that it becomes comfortable for customers to get this type of financing. So if you just really ask a couple of questions and the customer just needs to click, next, finish, and you have the invoice financing, then it's much easier. It's much easier to sell. It's much easier to buy basically the service. I would like to show you a couple of examples from Hungary. As in Hungary, not an e-invoicing regime, but a real-time data submission regime was introduced in 2018. And first it was introduced for larger companies, but then the threshold was lowered to all invoices, basically. So this kind of revolution already happened in Hungary, and there are a couple of solutions who integrated the invoicing data and the use of invoicing data into their solutions, and there will be all the accessibility of invoice data, how factoring companies use this. The first example I would like to mention is Factor, which launched a digital factoring solution. And besides launching a digital factoring solution, they also launched their own online invoicing solution. So when the customer logs into their system, they can issue their invoices, but they can also start the factoring process as well. Besides their own invoicing solution, they integrated with the largest Hungarian online invoicing solution for SMEs, and they did an end-to-end integration. I will show the details of this integration as well, but it's the same. The customer issues the invoice, and then it can also start the factoring process as well. There is another digital factoring solution called Pintech. They integrated with the two most popular online invoicing solutions via their APIs. So it's basically, again, the same. The customer logs into the online invoicing system, and then they can initiate the financing process right from the invoicing system, which is basically the embedded finance. So this is how it works. The company starts issuing an invoice. It will input the customer name. It will also put the due date and the payment method to the invoice. So we have, just we are collecting the necessary data points for the invoice finance. They will also enter into the invoice the item and the price data. So we will have the invoice amount. And finally, if we have all this data, the customer issues the invoice, and in the background, real-time risk assessment is run in the background, and the customer sees also instantly if the invoice can be financed, and if the invoice can be financed, then the SME can have the money instantly within 24 hours. So you can see how easy it can get with the use of invoice data. I won't talk about this example because Boglárka will explain K&H Bank solution and how they use digital invoice data from Hungary. Besides Hungary, I also wanted to mention a couple of other examples from other countries. India also introduced an e-invoicing regulation starting in 2020, and I just would like to introduce the company called Credible. They are a working capital solution company. They also set up their own invoicing solution for the smallest companies. So it's the same thing. You can issue your invoices from their platform. They also did the integration with the one of the most widespread accounting solution called Tally, so they can pull invoice data from a third-party data source. So it's already happening in other countries as well. And another example which I would like to mention, which is not for the smallest companies, but a little bit bigger companies, is the MasterCard SAP Pioneer cooperation for embedded finance. So basically, SAP Pioneer has the invoicing part, and then they can initiate the financing process. Also, again, right from the ERP system. If you ask for this presentation, you will see the link about the webinar when they talk about this. So it's happening all over the world, but what effect does digitalization have on the small company's life? In Hungary, the factoring industry does not have a very high GDP penetration, and it's a highly concentrated market dominated by banking players. And the biggest problem is for the smallest companies that even if they take the factoring, it is likely that the bigger companies are financed this way, so the smaller companies are not financed by factoring. But if we go into a real-life example of the számlás.hu and flexible integration, then you can see that we have an SME with a revenue of approximately 500,000 euros. It's a good company, it's a stable company, being there already with 25 years. And because of the integration of the online invoicing solution, számlás.hu and Flexible, they could start factoring their invoices. This company factored more than 400 invoices. So you can see that the individual invoice amount is not that high, but it means that invoice finance becomes accessible for smaller companies. And as a result, they could decrease their sales outstanding by 74 days, which is life-saving for smaller companies. And if you calculate the costs of this better working capital position, it amounts to 4,000 euros, which is not a small percentage of the profit of 80,000 that they make. So if you see the big picture, I think it is attractive. But if you see the other end, from the small guy's perspective, it is also a very important thing that we start using invoice data for factoring, because it makes more accessible and cheaper. And I would like to thank you for this.